All right, everyone. Welcome back to Wellness Wednesday. I am so excited to be joined by my friend and my nutritionist, Suzi Dobias, who is the owner of RCA Nutrition. Now, Suzi is a nutritionist. She is a functional medicine practitioner, and she specializes in helping people reverse autoimmune diseases. So, Suzi, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today and for giving us all your time. I think this is going to be a really great interview.
I've been waiting for this day. Are you kidding me? Waiting
Right.
for this day.
So, Suzi, I don't know how long you've been doing this, but I know that you've been working with people in regards to their health for some time. And I'm curious, out of all the things that you've seen, people that you've met, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that people in today's society deal with as it relates to getting their health on track?
Mm. Oh, there's quite a bit, but it's interesting because, well, one, having the right plan. Okay, that's starter number one is you can't follow something generalized, and most people will pick, oh, I'm going to do paleo or I'm going to do keto, and just because something's healthy doesn't mean it's healthy for you. Bottom line, everybody's gut is different, everybody's health history is different, everybody's lifestyle is different, everybody's food sensitivities are different, and just because it works for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So always starting out with a good plan, one that's specialized for you, I think is smart, because if not, people jump off very quickly if they don't see results. They'll start a plan, and you know what, if it doesn't work within 24 hours or a few days, then they're like, okay, I'm done. And they have a hard time picking it back up again. And I think some of it is just because they're confused, and some of it is they feel like they failed, and some of it is they're just frustrated. And then the next thing beyond that is, honestly, people have a plan, but then implementing the plan. And what's the problem there? Scheduling. I'm just going to tell you, it's the biggest problem that I see, hands down, is that people have a hard time just scheduling it in. Great at scheduling your business, great at scheduling when you're going to pick up your kids, great at scheduling all the things, but scheduling time specifically for you, that's where things get sticky. And also just within the food and the meal plans, because what you put in your body matters. And if you're looking to better your health or lose weight or whatever that is, it all comes from your fork. Your fork can either heal you or harm you. And so you have to have a good plan, but then executing the plan. So that means you have to prepare and make some time for yourself to actually have the right foods available, right? And then it's just having some structure around that, because that's the thing. We get busy with life. We get busy. I work with a lot of people in real estate, and it's like I need a shot collar and a taser gun when spring market hits, y'all. Crazy town, okay? It's crazy town. But everybody's going by the seat of their pants. Next thing you know, they haven't eaten all day, and there's McDonald's drive-through. Thank you very much. I'm good now. And then the next day, and then you're punishing yourself later because you feel terrible. You wake up the next day and your weight's up and you feel awful. And it's the repetitive cycle, just because there's not a lot of pre-planning and some structure, and that's really what it comes down to. And if people just actually put that in, it's a game changer. I mean, and you don't need something like, I have to meal prep every weekend night on, Sunday for the whole week. I tell a lot of people, hey, listen, if you're cooking dinner at the end of the day, make enough for tomorrow. Okay. Make enough food so you have leftovers tomorrow. Now you have lunch, and also you have extra food. Say you're out and you're stuck. You got stuff with you. And now you don't have to search. You're not on this hunt, and going through the drive-through conundrum, right? You're already prepared, and it's not hard, because literally you had to cook that night before. You just cook a little bit extra, and then freeze some extra stuff, extra protein. So that way they're easy to pull out. It's grab and go. And the way things are today in a lot of households is a lot of people are on different food plans, and that can get really hard. But again, it really comes down to the proteins. If you have cooked proteins and they're in the freezer and they're already been cooked, you can mix anything together like that. Like, really, it's so quick and easy. So it's that preparation, and just being strategic with it, with taking your time for yourself.
Yeah. And there's a lot that you just unpacked there. Having the right plan for you. I remember when we first started working together, I was taking one of the things that's really popular that's
Yeah.
advertised on a lot of podcasts is AG1 athletic
Yeah.
greens. And for whatever reason, and I'm not knocking the product, I have a lot of friends that take it and swear by it, but it doesn't work for me. It does something to me that I don't like. Whey protein is another one for me. I can't have whey protein. It makes me sick. And so when you break that down, Suzi, I mean, how does someone go about getting the right plan for them? Like 2 to 3 steps that you'd recommend.
Well, one, I would meet with somebody who knows what they're talking about. Okay. Two, like the bottom line is so for instance, with you, okay, first thing we did was we did a food sensitivity test to see what your body's not okay with. And there's a lot of tests out there on the market, and everybody will be like, oh, I did Everlywell, or I did Vibrant, I did all these different tests, and it says I'm not sensitive to anything, or maybe like 3 things. And bottom line is this, okay? So those tests all are blood tests that test IgG, IgA, and IgM. Okay, this is all antibodies. So basically, if you ate something when you were 5, say you ate eggs when you were 5, and your body was like, nope, I don't like you. Okay, it developed an antibody. Now you can actually take a blood test later, and that antibody will show. And it'll show that you're sensitive to this, but are you or are you not? Are you still? Probably not. So I always prefer the ALCAT. The ALCAT is different testing. The ALCAT tests leukocytes. So leukocytes are your white blood cells. It takes your blood and tests it over 28 hours, live blood over 28 hours, because your body, when it comes to food sensitivities, you can react to a food up to 3 days after you eat it. So they test over a longer period of time to see what's happening. And they're not looking for antibodies. They're looking at how your immune system is responding. If your immune system is like, hey, red flag, okay, it'll show up as a red. Okay. If it's moderate, it'll show up as an orange. If it's yellow, it's going to be a mild, or green, it's going to be okay. So getting the right testing done, or there's the other slow process, which is literally an elimination diet, where you take out all the things, the inflammatory foods and things that you think, are bad for you. But a lot of times, like I said, just because something's healthy doesn't mean it's healthy for you. So like with the AG1, like you were like, all this stuff is great for me. There's nothing in here that's bad, but it was blowing you up. You were just like, I do not feel well on this. So elimination diets are great but however, you're really limited to just such a small amount of food because we're trying to figure out what you're sensitive to. And again, you can react up to 3 days after you eat it. So the slow process is you take out all the things, you see what you're okay with. You have a baseline of a certain amount of foods, and every 3 days you add something new in. Okay, that's daunting. That's a hard process. So, but these are the different processes that you would go through to figure out that,
And an elimination diet, Suzi, would like Whole30, would that be an example of elimination diet?
Whole30 could be, yeah, because you're going to eliminate all the top inflammatory foods for sure. So that would be a very broad spectrum elimination diet. We normally, you pull out the gluten, the dairy, the sugar, and depending on what symptoms somebody's having, like say they get bloated and stuff after they eat, I would look at FODMAPs, fermentable sugars, because that might be a problem. Because if you have gut dysbiosis, which, hello America, we all deal with that, right?
Yeah. So step 1, meet with somebody that knows what they're talking about. Step 2, figure out what foods you're sensitive to. You like the ALCAT, and elimination diets are another process. Is there another step as it relates to kind of getting on the right plan for people?
I think once you have that information, then it's taking that and making a plan for it, as far as like meal plan. I think you're the master of ChatGPT meal plans. Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that until you were like, Suzi, I'm ChatGPTing it, because it's such a process, because now you have a list of foods. Well, what are you going to make with it? Right? Like, okay. And so you've been very successful with that. So how's that work for you?
The ChatGPT thing works amazing because it can be so nuanced. And what I love about it is not only can you take ingredients and create recipes, once we've figured out, like Rochelle and I did this on Friday, we broke down the next week's, based on our approved list, our next week's food. We broke down 5 recipes that we were going to have for dinner. And then what I asked it to do was organize a grocery list in alphabetical order and eliminate any duplicates. And boom, it kicks out that grocery list. And then what we did is we take the grocery list and we go into the kitchen and we just ask the question, what is it that's on here that we already have? And so what we don't have is obviously what we go buy at the grocery store.
Right.
And it takes so much of the guesswork out of it. And then what's been really helpful for us, especially over the last few weeks, is just getting comfortable with just eating. We basically eat the same 4 or 5 meals every single week, and you just get better at cooking them. You get better at cleaning them up, and the whole process just gets simpler.
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed in the beginning. It's change. Change can be overwhelming, especially when it comes to food, because food is a lot. Like food is comfort. Food is habit. Food is socializing. Food is like, you can take this from me, I'm gonna hurt you sometimes. Like it is something that means a lot to people. And so when you go through these processes of change, a lot of people would look at this and say, hey, I'm bored with this. And you guys are like, hey, we're getting good at this. And that's a different mindset to have. And I think that that's brilliant, because usually that's the biggest problem with people. They'll be like, well, I'm bored with this and I'm not okay with this anymore. And, you're looking at it in a different perspective when you're saying, hey, we're getting better at this and we're finding ways to do things differently with the things, and it's working. What do you think the biggest challenge has been for you as far as execution?
That's a good question. And I was trying to find this Instagram. I'll find it. It was a post from yesterday. And, one of the things, Suzi, that you and I will sometimes talk about, and this is something that I've really enjoyed in working with you, is that there's this whole emotional side to eating and to food and self-soothing and all that. And, you and I have had many conversations about trauma. And one of this, I'll find this post, but it was from, she's the holistic psychologist, but she was talking about children who grow up in unpredictable environments or have unpredictable adults in their environments, or for whatever reason, feel neglected, often find that food is one of the things that they can self-soothe through, right? Yes. And so that's why, especially when you look at the food system in America, where you literally have chemists sitting in a plant somewhere. We don't eat things that come from the plants. They're built in plants, trying everything in their power to make this thing more addictive, to make it light up more dopamine in our minds. Mm-hmm. And it's no wonder that you look at, a whole nation of people that struggle with this idea of food, right? We don't address trauma. We don't really give a shit about the food system the way that we should. If it makes money, then we put this stuff out. And I think that the biggest challenge for me was understanding the emotional patterns of food and understanding how much I do use it or have used it in the past to self-soothe, and figuring out techniques and different ways. And the other thing I've enjoyed about working with you is that I don't get hit with the shame stick. And right. So inevitably when I screw up, and look, you don't come to me and say, Jordan, this is your meal. This is the right plan for you. And you better follow it 100% of the time. You and I even broke it down, and this was more me driving the conversation at the time to make sure that I didn't lose pizza. But we even broke it down. It's like, look, if you're going to eat 25 meals in a month or 25 meals in a week, just make sure that 90% of those are on template, which the calculator in my brain goes, okay, in a month, or I'm sorry, in a week, I've got about 2 to 3 meals But the other thing that you shared with me is like, when you go to those 2 to 3 meals, you don't have to go crazy, like
Right.
moderation. And so I think that understanding the emotional patterns was hard for me, admitting it. I didn't want to admit that I was using food to self-soothe. Those were probably the biggest two. The meal prepping for me isn't hard, because once you figure out how to do it and you just make peace with the fact that you're just going to eat a lot of the same things over and over again, I actually prefer the meal prepping, because I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
It's one less thing that you have to worry about in your day, and it just becomes a no-brainer.
that's right. And I'm that way with a lot of things. Clothes, like I find one pair of pants I like, I buy the same color, I buy 5 of them.
No, yeah.
I just don't want to think about it.
No, but emotional eating is one of the things that I think everybody does. Janine Roth, she is an author. She's somebody who has dealt with like food issues forever. And I remember one of the books that she wrote, she had talked about how, the nice thing about food is, all sorts of people in your life, basically, they have something to say. They can be hurtful, right? They can leave scars. They can be upsetting and everything else. She said, food doesn't talk back. Like it's not, you can have a bad day, and you don't have to worry about what the food's going to say to you, because it's not going to say anything back to you. Okay. And that's that feeling of comfort that you get when there's no drama, there's no emotion coming back at you. You're in this moment where you're eating, and you know what? It feels safe, and it feels comforting, and it's hitting all your dopamine receptors, and a lot of times it's super nostalgic, because this is what you did as a child. These certain things are the things you bring to make you feel better, and it's a normal response. I mean, and basically your whole food culture is created in childhood. How you were taught, how you ate as a family, how you ran, whatever you did to use food as, whether it was fuel, whether it was comfort, whatever it was, and there's tradition around that too, where every, we got a good grade and it was ice cream time, or something along those lines. And we kind of carry that with us, and then we teach our kids, right? But when it comes down to stress, I think that's one of the biggest times where stress and emotions, where people will just, they go there. And you know what? I never shame anybody for that. I mean, I don't shame anybody for anything. Bottom line is, we're all created and we're all raised differently. And that's your coping mechanism. Okay. We look to find better ones. Absolutely. But you know what? When you have that bite of ice cream, I'm going to tell you, how was it good? Tell me how good it was. I want to hear about it. Like, I will never be like, I can't believe you went and turned to the food. I'm always like, oh, was it so good? Are you kidding me? Tell me about it.
Right. And I think the other thing that, as you mentioned, like when you're implementing or scheduling this, change can be disruptive. Right. And one thing I mentioned last week on Wellness Wednesday is that when change shows up, or we seek to create change, it's a tendency for humans to focus first on what we're losing, not what we're gaining. And so when we started this journey, this recent one that we've been on, it's easy for me to focus on losing the pizza. It's easy for me to lose the burgers or whatever. But the thing that you can't actually know until you experience it is just how much better you feel.
Yes.
And so you've got to be really kind of faithful, I think, to the process, and knowing that, yes, you are going to give up some things that, yes, you think are helpful. But I'll never forget, one of the things that you said to me was, what are the things that you love that actually hate you? Because we know what that is for me, Suzi. It's coffee.
It's coffee.
Right? It's coffee. And, giving up coffee has been the hardest freaking thing, I swear, in my life. And yet, when you do get yourself to start letting go of the things that hate you, you feel so much better. You don't want to go back. Right.
Yeah. Oh no, it's liberating when you start feeling better. No, you don't want to go back. And you know what? You will have those times where you do, and then you're reminded of why you do it. You know what I mean? You're reminded of why you stay away from it. I had an interesting conversation with somebody last week. So I was flying out to DC to speak, and she was getting some food together for me because, you know, I have celiac disease and I have to be if I get cross contamination, I'm in bed for 3 days. I have brain fog and I literally sleep and I'm on the toilet. Okay. So I got to be careful. Okay. So she asked me, she said, hey, can you give me a list of your food restrictions? And as she said that, Jordan, I sat there and I went like this. And I was like, what's she talking about? And I said, food restrictions, what do you mean? Like it made no sense to me that the foods that I wasn't able to eat, she saw as a restriction. I didn't. I was like, I don't have any food restrictions. And I was like, I sat there for a minute and I was like, mind blown. I'm like, listen, and that's how people look at it. They view not being able to eat something as being restricted. And for me, it's liberating. Okay. I'm eating foods that are healthy for me. I'm eating foods that make my body feel good. You know what? And I feel amazing. I'm 55 years old. Okay. Please, do I look 55? I mean, I can kick the snot out of anybody. All right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel amazing. And why would I want to put bad things in me that make me feel terrible? You know what I mean? I don't have restrictions. Even when I went through, so I've gone through a lot of different health journeys with, you know, I've had Hashimoto's that I don't have anymore. I reversed it. I've had mold, gone, all the things. And when I remember I went through a liver cleanse for like a month because I have hematomacrosis where I'm an iron loader and my things were bad. And so I'm like, I'm going to detox for a month. And I was on a speaking tour at a time too. Okay. So I got a van. I had a cooler in the back. I had kitchens everywhere and I was cooking and I was eating just fish and vegetables. Okay. I was eating all the right things. And every time I took a bite of food, I was like, take that, liver. I did. Everybody else was like, I can't believe like you have to eat this way. And I was like, what way? I'm healing my body. What? You want some more of that? And I'd take another bite. And I literally was like, what? And that's how I've always viewed it. I've never viewed it as a burden or a restriction or oh, it's terrible. You can't eat that. I don't want to eat the things that America eats because guess what? They're riddled with pesticides. They're riddled with all sorts of bad oils and poisons. And I mean, you name it. There's so many toxins in all of it that make America not feel well, right? Mm-hmm. And sick. I mean, again, what you put on your fork either drives disease or it's healing. And I love the choice that I've made. And I don't ever view that as a restriction. I mean, honestly, but it's crazy to see that that's what everyone else views. Like, oh, I have this food restriction. So when we were in DC, I finished my talk and I went to True Food Kitchen with one of my patients, and I love her. She had a chart of these are the foods I can have. These are the foods I can't have because she can't have any histamine right now because we just went through a massive big therapy things. And she just handed that list over to the guy. And she's like, tell the chef to make what he can for me. Chef comes out and he's like, okay. So no, but I can have all of this. And what else you got? And it was not a problem in any way, shape, or form. It was like, they got to create her own meal. And she was like, here's my list. And they were like, done.
Yeah. And see that's, I would imagine that a chef like that would probably look at that as a personal challenge. And, you know, the thing that you're highlighting here, Suzi, that's so important. And I mentioned this again in last week's Wellness Wednesday, is that oftentimes when we seek to create change, we want to do it through abstinence, not through association. And so abstinence means I'm just not going to eat the pizza. But what you're talking about is you associate something different to the pizza. You're not looking at it like you're having to abstain from something that you want. You look at that and go, that's junk. I don't want to put that in here. I want to feel great. That doesn't make me feel great. And so when you look at it that way, when you really get clear on what you associate pain and pleasure to. And by the way, you can engineer that yourself. You can use your mind to reverse or change what you link pain or pleasure to. Then it takes willpower out of the equation. It takes all the, oh man, I really want to eat that cake out of the equation, because to you, it's like, that's poison.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is like what you were talking about with the toxins and the pesticides and the things that we eat. There's so many times that I've coached people and they say things like, not feeling well, I feel off, I'm tired, whatever. And, you know, we'll kind of run through the checklist, and inevitably where we'll typically end up is just tell me everything you put in your mouth over the last 24 hours. And when they say things like, oh, I ate a piece of sausage, it's like, well, wait, did you get that at the farmer's market? Or is this like a Jimmy Dean sausage that you bought at the grocery store? Because those two things are not made equally. And we're eating and consuming things that have no basis in nature or our guts. And then we wonder why we're anxious, depressed, or off kilter, right?
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. And it's interesting on how food not only affects, you know, the gut and the inflammation in the body, but the brain. I mean, there's a gut-brain connection. 80% of your neurotransmitters are in your gut. So dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, all of these guys, GABA, it's all in your gut. And so basically, if you have an inflamed gut, you have an inflamed brain. Okay, like it runs straight up into and the neurotoxicity of and it's not just the neurotransmitters, but you think about what you're housing in your gut. So if you have a lot of inflammation and you've got a lot of toxins going through there and everything else, you're going to have a lot of brain fog. You're going to have a lot of just neurotoxicity happening, and people, they don't make the connection and the fatigue. You know, they don't think, oh, the food's doing this to me. They just are like, if I had a buck for every time I heard this, I'm just getting old. And I would literally roll my eyes back in my head. I hate that excuse, because it's an excuse. Again, 55 people. All right. I when people are, oh no, it's just getting old. And I'm like, okay, no. There's a reason for this. We just have to figure out what the reason is. And again, got to trail it back to what's coming in your mouth, you know, and what's on the fork.
Yep. That's right. So Suzi, we've got 2.5, and then I want to make sure that we let everyone know how they can get a hold of you if they'd like to. So I'm sitting here, I'm listening to you, right? I know that I've got to get my own plan. I know all that. And yet, what can I do today to start changing the story of my health and my energy?
Oh, you got to start changing the way you're thinking. That's what you can do first and foremost, because the bottom line is your success story all starts and ends here. Okay. And what you're going to implement and how you're going to do this all comes around your mindset on how you choose it to be. If you make a choice today of, you know what, today's my day. Today is my day that I'm going to get well. Today's my day that I choose to do something better for myself. And I'm going to go into this with the right attitude. Okay. Because you can start a new health journey, and guess what? You can complain the whole way and it can suck, right? Oh, I have to do this and I'm giving up this. You know, you're focusing on the loss. Or you can say, you know what? Stuff hasn't served me well, and I'm going to take time for now to serve me well. And so I you know, jumping into something like Whole30 would be a great place just to start, because it's whole foods. You know, you're gonna get out the inflammatory foods. It's a great starting point. If you haven't been able to figure out what works for you at all, and you'll see inflammation will come. That means, again, you're eating something that's healthy that you're reacting to. So then figure it out from there. But don't ever quit just because it's hard or things aren't going the way that you want them to, because this is the thing. You're trying to figure it out. So it's going to be like this. Okay. It's going to be all over the place. You're going to have good days with food. You're going to have bad days with food. There's going to be days where things are going to work and they're not going to work. And what I always tell people is this: on the days that things don't work, what you do is you go back to the last day that you felt good and your weight went down. And that is your base point. Eat those foods again. Okay. And then you build a safe list and you can add foods in from there. All right. If by chance, say you're on your own plan and you're like, oh, and then you go YOLO one day. Okay. You have a weekend where you're like, ate all the things. I went up 2 pounds. Do a fasting day on Monday. If you fast breakfast to breakfast or dinner to dinner and you break your fast with something you know that you're okay with, that 2 or 3 pounds that came on will fall right off. It's inflammation. It's not fat, people. Your body's inflamed. And now you can reset your clock basically. So you're not having to chase those pounds down again because, you know, all of a sudden you gain 3 and now I have to lose that 3 and then more. We can reset things on Monday. All right. And now you have a starting point where you can keep moving forward. So this gives you kind of like, oh my gosh, I have some wiggle room. Oh my gosh, I don't have to be 24/7, gotta be on all the time. No, if you have an off day, there's ways around that to reset. The important thing is that you take that day to reset and you don't make a week out of being crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. That's right. Well, Suzi, I so appreciate the work that you do and the impact you've made on our lives and the people that are listening to this today. If someone in the audience wants to reach out, inquire about potentially working with you and Rich, she works with her husband, Rich, who's also amazing. What's the best way for them to find you?
Well, our website is rcanutrition.com, or you can email info@rcanutrition.com. Those are the best 2 spots to reach us at.
Sweet. All right. Well, we'll make sure that that information is in the comments where this in the Facebook group. So thank you, Suzi, for the time. Thank you for the wisdom that you shared with us today. I know we're all better for it. And for those of you that are with us here today, thank you for joining us for Wellness Wednesday. We'll be back here next week, same day, same time, 7:30 Central on Wednesday with another very special guest that you'll get some great insights from. And I trust that you all will reach out to Suzi. She's amazing. Make it a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.